The metal glinted in the midday sun, catching Park Ranger James Treadwell's eye as he conducted his routine inspection of the abandoned bear den. He'd been tracking the migration patterns of black bears in Montana's Glacier National Park for nearly a decade, documenting their movements as part of a comprehensive wildlife management program. This particular den, vacated after the spring thaw, contained the usual debris: animal bones, plant matter, old fur. But something unnatural lay partially buried beneath the detritus. The metal glinted in the midday sun, catching Park Ranger James Treadwell's eye as he conducted his routine inspection of the abandoned bear den. He'd been tracking the migration patterns of black bears in Montana's Glacier National Park for nearly a decade, documenting their movements as part of a comprehensive wildlife management program. This particular den, vacated after the spring thaw, contained the usual debris: animal bones, plant matter, old fur, but something unnatural lay partially buried beneath the detritus. Treadwell crouched, brushing away dirt with his gloved hand, and felt his blood run cold. A small silver bracelet emerged, tarnished but unmistakable. Tiny charms dangled from the delicate chain: a butterfly, a unicorn, a heart with the letter L engraved on its surface. "Jesus Christ," Treadwell whispered, his breath visible in the cool mountain air. He'd seen this bracelet before, not in person, but in countless missing person flyers, news broadcasts, and search briefings. It had belonged to Lily Morgan, a 3-year-old girl who had vanished without a trace during a family camping trip in this very park 4 years earlier. Her disappearance had triggered one of the largest search operations in the park's history, involving hundreds of volunteers, search dogs, and even military personnel with thermal imaging equipment. They had found nothing. No clothing fragments, no footprints, no sign of the little girl with blonde pigtails and a gap-toothed smile. Until now. Treadwell radioed park headquarters immediately, his voice tight with tension. "This is Ranger Treadwell at coordinate point 47-18-22. I've found evidence related to the Morgan case. Repeat, I've found evidence related to the Morgan case. Need forensics team and law enforcement at my location immediately." Within hours, the peaceful mountain clearing transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the area around the bear den. Montana State Police evidence technicians in white Tyvek suits carefully documented, photographed, and collected every particle of soil and debris from the cavern. FBI Special Agent Diana Wells, who had been assigned to the case since the beginning, stood at the perimeter, her expression grim as she watched the team work. "How far are we from the original campsite?" she asked Treadwell, who had remained on scene as the Park Service liaison. "About 8 miles as the crow flies," he replied, pointing northwest. "But it's rough terrain, steep ravines, dense forest, no established trails. Even an experienced hiker would struggle to make it through." "And a 3-year-old?" Treadwell shook his head. "Impossible on her own." Detective Frank Mercer of the Montana State Police joined them, clutching an evidence bag containing the bracelet. "Preliminary field test confirms it's silver, matches the description provided by the parents. That L charm is custom-made, according to their statement. No doubt it's hers." Agent Wells nodded, her dark eyes scanning the surrounding forest. "The question is, how did it get here? Bears don't collect jewelry." "They do collect food," Mercer said quietly. The implication hung heavy in the mountain air. Bears were opportunistic predators and scavengers. The thought that little Lily Morgan might have fallen victim to one was both tragic and disturbingly the most logical explanation. "We need to notify the parents," Wells said finally. "And keep this out of the media until we've conducted a thorough examination of the den and surrounding area. If there are remains—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Karen Morgan's hands trembled as she cradled the evidence bag containing her daughter's bracelet. Her husband, David, stood beside her in their modest Missoula home, one hand on her shoulder, his face a mask of controlled grief. "I put this on her that morning," Karen whispered. "It was a gift from her grandmother for her 3rd birthday. She loved those charms, especially the butterfly. She'd make it fly on her wrist. Agent Wells watched the couple carefully. After 4 years of investigating Lily's disappearance, she had come to know the Morgans well. Their pain, their resilience, the strain that the loss of their only child had placed on their marriage. They had separated briefly during the 2nd year, reuniting after 6 months of counseling, determined to face their grief together. "Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Morgan," Wells began gently, "I need to ask you again about that day. I know you've told the story dozens of times, but sometimes, with new evidence, previously forgotten details might surface." David Morgan nodded grimly. "We understand. Whatever helps find our daughter." Karen took a deep breath and began the familiar recitation. "We arrived at the campground around noon on June 12th. It was a Saturday. The weather was perfect, sunny, about 75 degrees. We set up our tent at the Pine Valley site, had lunch, and then decided to hike one of the shorter trails nearby." Lily was excited, David added. She'd been talking about seeing bears and wolves for weeks before the trip. We told her those animals were shy and that she probably wouldn't see any, but she should tell us right away if she did. "After dinner, we roasted marshmallows, told stories," Karen continued. "Lily fell asleep in my lap around 8:30. We put her in the tent, in her sleeping bag between us, and went to sleep ourselves around 10. Her voice faltered slightly. "When I woke up at 6:15 the next morning, she was gone. The tent flap was unzipped. I assumed David had gotten up with her, but he was still asleep beside me." David's grip on her shoulder tightened. We searched the immediate area, calling her name. Then we ran to the campground host, who contacted park rangers. By noon, there were 50 people searching. By evening, hundreds. "Did you notice anything unusual during the night?" Wells asked. "Any sounds, movements, anything that might have woken you briefly?" Karen shook her head, but then paused. I thought it was a dream at the time, but I remember hearing Lily giggle, very softly, like she was trying to be quiet. In my dream, I told her to go back to sleep." "What time would that have been?" "I don't know. Late. The fire had died down completely." "And you're certain the tent flap was secure when you went to sleep?" "Positive," David replied. "I always double-check. I'm a stickler about keeping wildlife out." "What about Lily? Did she know how to unzip the tent?" Karen nodded. "She'd learned that summer. We'd practiced in the backyard a few times. She was very proud of being able to do it herself." Agent Wells made notes, though she already knew most of these details from previous interviews. "And there were no unusual people around the campground? No one who paid special attention to Lily?" "No," David said firmly. "There was a retired couple at the next site, the Hendersons. They've been cleared. A group of college students about 5 sites down, all accounted for during the search. The campground was less than half full that weekend." "What about wild animals? Did you see any signs of bears or other predators in the area?" Karen's face paled at the implication. "Number nothing. Are you saying, do you think a bear took her from our tent?" "We're exploring all possibilities, Mrs. Morgan," Wells said carefully. "The bracelet was found in what was clearly a bear den, but that doesn't necessarily mean—" "Oh, God," Karen moaned, doubling over as if in physical pain. "Karen?" David knelt beside his wife, holding her as she sobbed. "I'm very sorry," Wells said, rising from her seat. "I know this is difficult. We'll continue to investigate and keep you informed of any developments." As she left the Morgan home, Wells paused on the front porch. Something about the case had always bothered her, some detail that didn't quite fit. The discovery of the bracelet in the bear den offered a tragic but plausible explanation for Lily's disappearance. Yet her instincts, honed by 15 years with the FBI, told her the truth was more complicated. Her phone rang, displaying Detective Mercer's number. "Wells," she answered. "We've completed the preliminary examination of the den site," Mercer reported without preamble. "No human remains found, not even bone fragments or teeth, which would have survived even if, well, you know." "So no evidence that the bear harmed the child?" "None we can detect, but there's more. Forensics found traces of synthetic fabric caught on a root inside the den. Labs rushing the analysis, but it appears to be consistent with the material from a child's backpack." Wells frowned. "Lily wasn't carrying a backpack when she disappeared." "Exactly. And one more thing. We found a small cache of items buried about 3 feet into the den. Looks like the bear was collecting shiny objects. There was the bracelet, a few soda can tabs, a small plastic toy, and this—" She heard rustling paper over the line. "A key. Looks like a house key or maybe a padlock key. It's old, rusty, but definitely not something you'd find naturally in a bear den." "Interesting," Wells mused. "Bears don't normally cache items like that." "No, they don't, which means either this bear has some very unusual behaviors or someone placed those items in the den," Wells finished. "I'm on my way back." The forensics lab at Montana State Police Headquarters hummed with activity as technicians processed evidence from the bear den. Agent Wells and Detective Mercer stood at a light table, examining photographs of the items recovered. "The fabric is definitely from a child's backpack," said Dr. Eleanor Patel, the forensic analyst. "Specifically, a Disney princess design popular about 4 to 5 years ago. We found traces of pink glitter embedded in the fibers." "Any DNA?" Wells asked. "We're still testing, but preliminary results show multiple DNA sources. Human, definitely, but also animal, not just bear, but possibly canine as well." "A dog?" Mercer frowned. The Morgans didn't have a dog, and there were no reports of dogs at the campground that weekend. "What about the key?" Wells picked up the evidence bag containing the rusted key. It was small, the type used for a padlock rather than a door. "Standard design, mass-produced," Dr. Patel said. "Impossible to trace without a matching lock, but it's worth noting that the rust pattern suggests it was exposed to the elements for years before ending up in that den." Wells turned to Mercer. "We need to expand the search area around the den. If the bear was collecting items, there could be more evidence nearby." "Already on it," Mercer nodded. "I've got teams mapping a grid pattern extending half a mile in every direction from the den site." "And we need to revisit everyone who was in that area of the park 4 years ago," Wells added. "Not just the campground, but hikers, park staff, anyone who might have seen something unusual." "That's hundreds of people, most of whom have already been interviewed multiple times." "I know, but now we have new questions to ask." As they left the lab, Wells's phone rang again. It was Ranger Treadwell. "Agent Wells, our team has been tracking the bear population in the area where we found the den. According to our records, that particular den has been used seasonally by a female black bear we've designated as F307. She's approximately 9 years old now and has been in that territory for at least 6 years. "So she would have been there when Lily disappeared," Wells confirmed. "Yes, but here's the thing. Our wildlife cameras have occasionally captured images of F307, and in the summer of Lily's disappearance, she had 2 cubs with her. Black bear mothers with cubs are extremely protective and territorial. They don't typically bring foreign objects into their dens, especially not items that would carry human scent." "Are you saying the bear couldn't have taken these items to her den?" "I'm saying it's highly unlikely. Bears with cubs avoid human contact whenever possible. And if a bear did take a child—" Treadwell's voice grew strained. "There would be evidence. Blood, clothing, remains. The fact that we found none of that suggests something else happened to that little girl." Wells thanked him and hung up, her mind racing. If the bear didn't take Lily or her belongings to the den, then how did her bracelet end up there? Someone must have placed it there deliberately. But why? And who? The Morgan case file filled 3 boxes in the state police evidence room. Wells and Mercer spent hours reviewing statements, photographs, search patterns, and timelines from the original investigation. They spread the documents across a conference table, creating a visual map of the case. 4 years ago, we focused on 3 main possibilities, Mercer said, tapping different sections of their evidence board. 1. Lily wandered away from the campsite and got lost in the wilderness. 2. Wildlife encounter, bear, mountain lion, wolf. 3. Human abduction. The first scenario was always problematic, Wells noted. Even the most adventurous 3-year-old couldn't have traveled far enough on her own to evade the search teams. The terrain is too difficult, and children that age tend to follow paths of least resistance. The second scenario now seems unlikely given the lack of remains at the den site. Which leaves us with human intervention, Wells concluded. Someone took Lily from that tent. But who? And why leave her bracelet in a bear den years later? Wells studied the map of the search area. Let's approach this differently. The bear den is approximately 8 miles from the campsite. That's a long distance through difficult terrain. If someone took Lily, they either knew exactly where they were going or they lived in the area, Mercer finished. Someone familiar with the backcountry who could navigate without trails. Are there any private residences within the park boundaries? No, but there are some inholdings and private cabins just outside the eastern border. Most are seasonal, used for hunting or vacation homes. Wells grabbed her jacket. Let's go talk to the locals. The eastern edge of Glacier National Park transitioned into national forest land, where a scattered collection of private properties existed in the shadow of the mountains. Most were rustic cabins built decades ago, passed down through families or sold as recreational properties. The narrow dirt road wound through pine forest, occasionally revealing a driveway or mailbox, marking human habitation. Wells and Mercer spent the day interviewing residents, showing photographs of Lily and asking about activity in the area 4 years earlier. Most were cooperative but had little useful information. Many weren't even in residence during the time in question. As the afternoon waned, they approached the last property on their list, a weathered cabin set back from the road, nearly invisible among the trees. The mailbox read, Peterson, in faded letters. According to county records, this property belongs to a James Peterson, Mercer said, consulting his notes. Purchased 12 years ago, full-time resident, not seasonal. They parked at the end of the long driveway and approached on foot. The cabin appeared well-maintained despite its age, with a neat woodpile stacked along one wall and smoke curling from the chimney. A battered green pickup truck sat nearby. The curtains were drawn across all visible windows. Wells knocked firmly on the front door. No response. She knocked again, louder. Mr. Peterson, FBI and Montana State Police, we'd like to ask you a few questions. Movement sounded from within, the scrape of a chair, footsteps approaching. The door opened a few inches, secured by a chain. A man's face appeared in the gap, mid-60s, weathered skin, gray beard, wary eyes. What's this about? His voice was rough, as if rarely used. Wells held up her credentials. I'm Special Agent Diana Wells with the FBI, and this is Detective Frank Mercer with the Montana State Police. We're investigating a missing person case and would appreciate a few minutes of your time. Don't know nothing about any missing persons, Peterson replied, making no move to undo the chain. It's regarding a child who disappeared from a campground in the park 4 years ago. Lily Morgan, age 3. We're speaking with all residents in the area. Peterson's expression remained impassive. I remember hearing about that. Terrible thing, but I can't help you. Were you in residence during June of that year, Mr. Peterson? I live here year-round, have for 12 years. Did you notice any unusual activity around that time? Unfamiliar vehicles? People in the area who didn't belong? No. His curt answers and unwillingness to open the door fully raised Wells's suspicions. Mr. Peterson, we're conducting a federal investigation. Your cooperation would be greatly appreciated. Peterson sighed, then closed the door to undo the chain. When he reopened it, Wells immediately noted his stiff posture and the way his eyes darted past them to scan the driveway. "Come in, then. But I don't have much time. Need to finish some chores before dark." The cabin's interior was Spartan but clean. A wood stove dominated the main room, surrounded by simple furniture, a worn armchair, a small dining table with 2 chairs, bookshelves filled with worn paperbacks. The walls were decorated with landscape photographs, presumably taken in the surrounding wilderness. "You live alone, Mr. Peterson?" Mercer asked, noting the single coffee mug on the counter. "Yes, since my wife passed, 11 years ago." "I'm sorry for your loss," Wells said. "What do you do for a living?" "Retired now, used to work forestry. These days I mostly keep to myself. Do some wildlife photography." He gestured to the photographs on the walls. "These are impressive," Wells commented, moving closer to examine them. Most were typical nature shots, mountains, lakes, wild animals in their natural habitats. But one caught her attention, a black bear with 2 cubs photographed from a respectful distance. "Is this F307?" she asked, using the designation the park rangers had given the bear. Peterson's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know about her?" "We've recently found evidence related to the Morgan case in her den." Something flickered across Peterson's face. Concern, perhaps, or fear. It vanished so quickly, Wells almost thought she'd imagined it. "What kind of evidence?" he asked. "A bracelet belonging to the missing girl, along with other items that suggest human intervention." Peterson turned away, moving to the wood stove to add another log, though the cabin was already comfortably warm. "Bears pick up all sorts of things. Doesn't mean anything." "This particular bear had cubs at the time Lily disappeared," Wells pressed. "According to wildlife experts, she would have avoided human contact, not sought it out." "Experts don't know everything." "Mr. Peterson, do you own any locks? Padlocks, specifically?" He stiffened almost imperceptibly. "What kind of question is that? Of course I do. Got a shed out back? Storage unit in town?" "We found a key in the bear den, along with the bracelet. A key that had been exposed to the elements for some time before ending up there." Peterson turned to face them, his expression now openly hostile. "Sounds like you're implying something, Agent Wells. If you've got questions to ask them directly." "Where were you on the night of June 12th, 4 years ago?" "Here, where I always am." "Can anyone verify that?" "Number I told you, I live alone." Mercer had been quietly examining the cabin while Wells questioned Peterson. Now he spoke up. "Those are some serious locks on your basement door, Mr. Peterson. Mind if we take a look down there?" Peterson's face darkened. "Yes, I mind. That's my private space. You want to see it? Get a warrant." Wells nodded slowly. "We'll do that, Mr. Peterson. In the meantime, please don't leave the area. We may have additional questions." As they walked back to their vehicle, Wells spoke quietly to Mercer. "Did you see his reaction when I mentioned the bear with cubs? And again with the key?" "Yeah, and those basement locks are excessive for a cabin in the middle of nowhere. 3 deadbolts, plus a padlock hasp." "Let's run a background check on James Peterson. Something doesn't feel right." Back at the field office, Wells reviewed Peterson's background while Mercer worked on obtaining a search warrant for the cabin. What she found troubled her deeply. James Peterson wasn't his real name. He was born James Peterson, with an E, and had changed the spelling slightly when he moved to Montana 12 years ago, not enough to trigger identity flags, but sufficient to complicate background searches. Before that, he had lived in Wyoming, where he had worked as a wilderness guide and search and rescue volunteer. Most disturbing was a 22-year-old case from Yellowstone National Park. A 5-year-old boy had disappeared during a family camping trip, bearing striking similarities to Lily's case. The child had vanished overnight from a tent he shared with his parents. Peterson, Then Peterson had been one of the search volunteers. The boy was never found. There were no charges filed, no official suspicion directed at Peterson, but the case notes mentioned that he had been exceptionally dedicated to the search, often venturing into areas alone beyond the established search grid. Wells called the retired ranger who had coordinated that search, now living in Colorado. "Peterson? Yeah, I remember him," the former ranger said. "Odd duck, kept to himself mostly, but knew the backcountry better than anyone. Why do you ask?" "We're investigating a similar disappearance in Glacier. Peterson now lives near the park." A long pause. "You know, there was something that always bothered me about him. After we called off the search, when most volunteers had gone home, Peterson kept coming back. Said he couldn't rest until the boy was found. Admirable, except he seemed almost obsessed, like he had a personal stake in it." "Was he ever considered a suspect?" "Not officially. No evidence. But between us, I never felt right about him. Something in his eyes when he talked about the missing boy. It wasn't normal concern. It was something else. Something possessive?" After hanging up, Wells found Mercer reviewing the preliminary search warrant paperwork. "We need to move quickly," she told him, sharing what she'd learned. "Peterson has a connection to a similar case, and I'm concerned about those basement locks." "The warrant will take at least until morning," Mercer said. "Judge Harmon is thorough, won't sign off without reviewing all the evidence." "We don't have until morning," Wells insisted. "If Peterson suspects we're onto him, he could destroy evidence or flee. He's had 4 years to cover his tracks. We can't give him another night." "What are you suggesting?" "We need to establish probable cause for an emergency entry, if we had reason to believe someone was in danger inside that cabin." "Like a 911 call reporting screams or suspicious activity?" Wells nodded grimly. "Exactly like that." Darkness had fallen over the forest when 4 police vehicles approached Peterson's cabin with lights off. They parked a quarter-mile away, and the team, Wells, Mercer, 2 state troopers, and a tactical officer, proceeded on foot. The dispatcher had indeed received an anonymous call reporting strange noises and lights at the Peterson property, providing the legal justification for their approach. The cabin was dark except for a faint glow from what appeared to be the basement windows, narrow slits at ground level, heavily curtained. The green pickup truck remained parked where they had seen it earlier. "He's home," Mercer whispered. "Approach from all sides. Secure the perimeter first. If he runs, we take him down outside." The team moved into position. Wells and Mercer took the front, while the others covered the rear and sides of the cabin. At Mercer's signal, Wells pounded on the door. "James Peterson, this is the FBI. We need you to open the door immediately." Silence from within. Wells knocked again, harder. "Mr. Peterson, open the door now." Still no response. Wells nodded to Mercer, who spoke into his radio. "All units, subject is not responding. Prepare for entry." The tactical officer moved forward with a battering ram. One powerful swing, and the door frame splintered. They moved in quickly, weapons drawn, flashlights illuminating the dark interior. "Clear!" Wells called from the main room. "Kitchen clear," from one of the troopers. "Bedroom clear," from another. The cabin appeared empty, though the wood stove was still warm, indicating Peterson had been there recently. Wells noticed a half-empty coffee mug on the counter and touched it, still warm. "He can't have gotten far," she said. "Check outside. He might be hiding in the woods." Mercer pointed to the basement door with its multiple locks. "All unlocked. He went out this way." They descended the stairs cautiously, weapons ready. The basement was larger than Wells had expected, extending beyond the cabin's footprint. Unlike the Spartan main floor, the basement was crowded with shelves, workbenches, and storage containers. One wall was dedicated entirely to photography equipment, cameras, lenses, lighting rigs, and several high-end computers. "Look at this," Mercer called from a corner where he had discovered a hidden door behind a shelf. It opened to reveal a narrow tunnel shored up with timber supports leading away from the cabin. "An escape route," Wells said. "He knew we'd be back." As they prepared to follow the tunnel, a trooper called out from another section of the basement. "Agent Wells, Detective Mercer, you need to see this." They found him standing before a locked door, the only interior door in the basement with a padlock. The hasp was new, the lock shiny. "Stand back," Mercer ordered, then fired a single shot at the lock, shattering it. The door swung open slowly, revealing a small room beyond. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them, arranged in careful chronological order. They showed a child at different ages from approximately 3 years old to what appeared to be current images of a 7-year-old girl. All featured the same subject, a blonde child with a familiar face, Lily Morgan growing up. "Oh my God," Wells breathed. But the room was empty. No child, no Peterson, just the photographic evidence of years of captivity. "These were taken here," Mercer said, pointing to background details that matched the cabin and surrounding forest. "He's had her all this time." Wells studied the most recent photographs, dated just days earlier. "She's alive, and if these are current, they can't have gone far." "The tunnel," Mercer realized. "He has a hiding place, somewhere in these woods." They rushed back to the tunnel entrance. It was crude but effective, large enough for an adult to navigate in a crouched position. The tactical officer went first, followed by Wells and Mercer, with the troopers securing the cabin. The tunnel extended approximately 50 yards, emerging in a dense thicket of pine trees well concealed from the cabin. Footprints in the soft earth indicated 2 people had passed this way recently. One large set, clearly Peterson's, and smaller prints that could only belong to a child. "They're heading east," the tactical officer noted, examining the tracks with his flashlight. "Deeper into the national forest." "He's taking her to another hiding place," Wells said. "Call for backup, search dogs, helicopters with thermal imaging. We need to find them before he disappears with her again." The search continued through the night, expanding outward from the tunnel exit. Additional law enforcement personnel arrived, along with park rangers familiar with the terrain. Search dogs picked up the scent trail, following it several miles into the forest before losing it at a fast-moving stream. At dawn, a helicopter with thermal imaging equipment detected a heat signature approximately 2 miles beyond the stream. Too small to be an adult, but consistent with a child. It was inside what appeared to be a small cave in a rocky outcropping. Wells and Mercer, along with a tactical team, approached the location carefully. Peterson could be armed and was certainly desperate. The mouth of the cave was narrow, partially hidden by brush, but clearly disturbed by recent activity. "James Peterson," Wells called out. "This is the FBI. We have the cave surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Silence from within. "We know Lily is with you. Let her go, and we can resolve this peacefully." Still no response. Wells signaled to the tactical team to prepare for entry, but before they could move, a small voice called out from inside the cave. "He's not here. He left me." Wells froze, then approached the cave entrance slowly, holstering her weapon. "Lily? Is that you?" "Yes." The voice was small, frightened, but clear. "My name is Diana. I'm with the FBI. Your mom and dad sent me to find you. Can you come out so we can see you?" "I can't. Daddy James said to stay hidden until he comes back. He said bad people would try to take me away." Wells knelt at the cave entrance, speaking gently. "Lily, I promise you're safe now. No one is going to hurt you. Your real mom and dad have been looking for you for a very long time. They miss you so much." Silence then. "Daddy James said my real mom and dad didn't want me anymore. That's why he saved me." "That's not true, Lily. Your parents never stopped looking for you. They love you very much." After a long moment, movement stirred in the darkness. A small figure emerged cautiously into the dawn light, a thin girl with long blonde hair and wary eyes, wearing clothes too large for her frame. Despite the years that had passed, her resemblance to the photographs of 3-year-old Lily Morgan was unmistakable. Wells approached slowly, kneeling to Lily's level. "Hi, Lily. I'm so glad to meet you." The girl studied her face. "Are you really taking me to my mom and dad?" "Yes, I am. They've been waiting for you for a very long time." Lily glanced back at the cave, then toward the forest, as if expecting Peterson to appear. "Daddy James will be angry." "You don't need to worry about him anymore," Wells assured her. "You're safe now." As they led Lily to the waiting vehicles, Mercer coordinated the continued search for Peterson. "He can't have gone far on foot. We'll find him." Wells wrapped a blanket around Lily's shoulders. "First priority is getting her to safety and medical attention. Peterson won't get far. Every law enforcement agency in the state is looking for him now." While Lily underwent medical examination and psychological assessment at the hospital, Wells pieced together the story from the evidence found in Peterson's cabin and Lily's limited statements. Peterson had been stalking the campground that night 4 years ago. According to his own journals found in the basement, he had been watching Lily for 2 days before taking her, believing she was being neglected by her parents because they had momentarily lost sight of her at a picnic area the day before. In his twisted mind, he was rescuing her, not abducting her. He had lured her from the tent by showing her a small puppy, a stray he had found and trained specifically for this purpose. The giggle Karen Morgan remembered hearing was real. Lily had been delighted by the puppy and willingly followed Peterson from the tent. He had taken her directly to his cabin, where a specially prepared room in the basement became her prison and home for the next 4 years. The bear den connection was Peterson's attempt at misdirection. He had deliberately placed Lily's bracelet and other items in the den to suggest she had been taken by wildlife, hoping to end the search permanently. The backpack fabric had come from a bag he had purchased for Lily, discarding pieces of it in the den along with the bracelet. Most disturbing were the photographs documenting Lily's captivity. Peterson had created an elaborate fantasy world, telling Lily her parents had abandoned her and that he had saved her from the wilderness. He called himself Daddy James and constructed a narrative that positioned him as her protector against a hostile outside world. Over time, Lily had accepted this reality, too young to remember much of her life before the abduction. 4 days after the raid on Peterson's cabin, a park ranger on routine patrol discovered his body in a remote area of Glacier National Park. He had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, leaving behind a rambling 12-page letter that alternated between justifying his actions as saving Lily and expressing regret that he couldn't protect her from being found. Karen and David Morgan approached the hospital room slowly, their faces a complex mixture of joy, anxiety, and heartbreak. Behind the door waited their daughter, no longer the toddler they had lost, but a 7-year-old who had spent more of her life with her abductor than with them. "She's been told you're coming," Wells explained gently. "Dr. Bennett has prepared her as much as possible, but this will be difficult. She has fragments of memories from before, but Peterson systematically replaced them with his own narrative. She may not recognize you immediately." Karen nodded, tears already streaming down her face. "We understand. We've been working with the child psychologist. We know this is just the beginning." "She's physically healthy," Wells continued. "No signs of sexual abuse, thankfully. Peterson seems to have been fixated on being a father figure, rather than something worse. But the psychological trauma is significant. It will take time and professional help for her to adjust." "We have all the time in the world," David said firmly. "We've waited 4 years to find her. We'll wait however long it takes to help her heal." They entered the room together. Lily sat on the bed, wearing new clothes provided by the hospital, her blonde hair freshly washed and brushed. She looked up as they entered, her expression guarded, uncertain. Karen stopped a few feet from the bed. "Lily." "It's Mom. And Dad." Lily studied their faces with an intensity beyond her years. I think I remember your voice. You used to sing to me." Karen nodded, unable to speak through her tears. "You are my sunshine," Lily said softly. That was the song. "Yes," Karen managed, "every night before bed." Lily's gaze shifted to David. "You had a beard before? A red one?" "I did," David confirmed, touching his now clean-shaven face. "I grew it when we went camping. Your mom said it made me look like a lumberjack." Something flickered in Lily's eyes, recognition perhaps, or the stirring of a long-buried memory. She didn't smile, but her posture relaxed slightly. "The doctors say I can go home soon," she said tentatively. Is that where we're going?" "Yes, sweetheart," Karen replied, taking a careful step closer. "We've kept your room just the way it was. Your stuffed animals are still there, waiting for you." Lily considered this. "Daddy James said you didn't want me anymore, that you left me in the woods on purpose." Karen and David exchanged pained glances. "That wasn't true, Lily," David said gently. "We never stopped looking for you, not for one day." "We love you more than anything in the world," Karen added, "and we missed you every single minute you were gone." Lily didn't respond immediately. She reached for a small stuffed dog on the hospital bed, a therapy toy provided by the child psychologist, and held it against her chest. "Can I bring this with me?" she asked finally. "Dr. Bennett said I could keep it." "Of course," Karen said. "You can bring anything you want." Lily nodded, clutching the toy tighter. I think I'd like to go home now." 6 months later, Agent Wells sat across from Dr. Rebecca Bennett in the psychologist's office, reviewing Lily's progress. "She's doing remarkably well, all things considered," Dr. Bennett explained. "Children are incredibly resilient, and Lily had the advantage of being very young when she was abducted. Her attachment to her real parents wasn't completely severed, just suppressed." "Has she spoken more about her time with Peterson?" Wells asked. "Yes, though carefully, within the structured therapy environment. She's able to distinguish now between Daddy James and her real father. She understands that what Peterson did was wrong, though she still struggles with some confusion. He wasn't physically abusive, which complicates her feelings about him." "Stockholm Syndrome?" "A form of it, yes. Peterson created an isolated world where he was her protector, provider, and sole human connection. Breaking that conditioning takes time, but she's making progress every day." Wells nodded, making notes for her final case report. "And the Morgans?" "They've been exemplary," Dr. Bennett said warmly. "Attending every therapy session, following all recommendations. They've created a stable, supportive environment while respecting Lily's need to process her trauma at her own pace. The family therapy sessions have been particularly effective." "Does Lily understand what happened to Peterson?" "We've explained it in age-appropriate terms. She knows he died and can't take her again, which has helped her feel secure. She had nightmares initially, fears that he would return for her, but those have diminished significantly." "Does she still ask about the puppy?" Dr. Bennett sighed. "Yes, the puppy was Peterson's most effective manipulation tool. He used it to lure her from the tent, then kept it as a companion for her during the first year. When it grew too large and energetic for the basement, he got rid of it, told Lily it ran away. She still talks about finding it someday." Wells made a final note, then closed her folder. "Thank you, Doctor. This will help complete our case file. Is there anything else you think I should know?" Dr. Bennett considered the question. "Just that cases like this are exceedingly rare. The combination of factors, Peterson's psychological profile, his isolation, his previous connection to a similar case, created a perfect storm. Most missing children cases don't end this way. You mean with the child found alive after years of captivity? Exactly. It's almost unprecedented. Wells stood to leave. One more question. Do you think Lily will ever fully recover from this experience? Fully recover isn't quite the right framework, Dr. Bennett said thoughtfully. Lily will never be the person she would have been without this trauma. But that doesn't mean she can't lead a healthy, happy life. With continued support and therapy, I believe she'll integrate this experience into her life story rather than being defined by it. Children have an extraordinary capacity to heal. 1 year after Lily's rescue, Wells received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a crayon drawing showing 4 figures: a man, a woman, a little girl, and a golden retriever puppy. At the bottom, in careful child's handwriting, "Thank you for finding me. Love, Lily Morgan." Attached was a brief note from Karen and David. Thought you'd like to know that Lily is thriving in 2nd grade. She still has therapy twice a week, but the nightmares are rare now. Last month, we adopted a golden retriever puppy from the local shelter. Lily named him Scout. She says he helps her feel brave. We can never thank you enough for bringing our daughter home. Wells pinned the drawing to her office bulletin board, a rare personal touch in her otherwise strictly professional space. It served as a reminder that even in the darkest cases, light could sometimes prevail. Ranger Treadwell's discovery in that bear den had led not just to Lily's rescue, but to a re-examination of the Yellowstone case from 22 years earlier. Though that child was never found, investigators uncovered evidence suggesting Peterson had indeed been involved, photographs in his cabin showing a young boy who matched the missing child's description. The case remained open, another family still waiting for answers. For Wells, the Morgan case represented both the terrible depths of human depravity and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. A small silver bracelet discovered by chance in an abandoned bear den had unraveled a 4-year mystery and returned a child to her family. In her line of work, such outcomes were vanishingly rare. As she prepared to leave for her next assignment, Wells took one last look at Lily's drawing. The little girl with the golden retriever had found her way home. Sometimes that was enough. Deep in the archives of the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, the case file on James Peterson joined others documenting similar predators, individuals who abducted children not for sexual gratification, but out of a distorted desire to create a family. Peterson had lost his own daughter in a custody battle following his divorce, prompting a psychological break that eventually led him to replace her by taking other children. His detailed journals, recovered from the cabin, revealed a man who had convinced himself he was rescuing neglected children rather than abducting them. The elaborate fantasy world he created, positioning himself as savior rather than kidnapper, allowed him to justify his actions to himself while inflicting immeasurable suffering on the families of his victims. Lily Morgan's case became required study for FBI agents specializing in child abduction. Her rescue after 4 years of captivity was cited as reason to never abandon hope, to pursue every lead no matter how cold the case might seem. The bear den discovery served as a stark reminder that sometimes the breakthrough evidence appears in the most unexpected places. And in a quiet neighborhood in Missoula, Montana, a little girl named Lily continued the long journey of reclaiming her life, one day at a time, with loving parents who had never stopped searching, and a puppy named Scout who helped her feel brave enough to face each new challenge. The bracelet that had led to her rescue now rested in an evidence box, its purpose served. But its legacy lived on in Lily herself, a child lost and found, broken but healing, forever changed but not defeated by what she had endured.